Grown and Growing, episode number 45, reflecting on 25 years of working with guest Yadira Santana-Dowling, Roberta Hatchett, and Emanuel Basnight. You're listening to Grown and Growing with Sonia Hamlin.
Trust your gut, because your gut will let you know. To Emanuel's point, right? Like there are certain things that don't sit well with us and we just endure it because we think we chose a career and this is the path that we have to follow. When it don't fit, and we pick something else. It doesn't have to stay forever.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the podcast. I recently read an article that said the average American will spend a third of their lives at work. This is a significant amount of time. And America in particular places work and career in such high regard, it's often associated with who you are as a person. The kicker is that somewhere between 50 and 75% of Americans say that they hate their jobs. As my son would say, that's wild. It's wild that people would spend a third of their lives doing something that they hate. But that is the reality of most Americans. Thankfully, I don't hate my job, but it did cause me to reflect on my career. Just like in life, I'm at the midway point of my career. If you consider that retirement is between the age of 65 and 67. I've been working for almost 25 years. Society has changed a lot since I first embarked on my career path. And now we look at careers and working and retirement differently than we did when I first embarked on my path 25 years ago. My initial thought was to have a solo episode where I reflected on just what have I gotten out of 25 years of working. But I figured that this conversation would be more fun if I invited a few friends who started their career paths at the same time as I did. They have been on the podcast before, so I am welcoming my friends, Yadira Santana-Dowling, who is a communication strategist and entrepreneur. She helps small businesses with marketing, and she recently just started a mentoring program. My friend, Roberta Hatchett, who is a marketing executive who has worked with brands like Bank of America. She's worked in ad agencies and consultancies across the Mid-Atlantic. She is also a newly minted entrepreneur who started her own wine and decor business. And finally, Emanuel Basnight. He's a brand strategist and longtime entrepreneur with his own skincare and fragrance line, as well as a company that specializes in African religion and spirituality. I really wanted us to talk about what have we gained in those 25 years? What did we learn? What did we learn about ourselves in that 25 years? And also, when it comes to the next 10, 20, 30 years, where do we see ourselves going? So, without further ado, let's get into this topic. Welcome to Grown and Growing. I'm so glad to have three of my favorite people in the world joining me for this conversation today. How you guys doing?
Good.
Good. If you have been following my podcast for a while, these faces may look familiar because they have joined me on a past episode. I forgot what we were talking about, but it was funny and hilarious and very smart. So go check it out. But today we are talking about our careers. And the way this came about is I was thinking about the course of my careers, and then it dawned on me that I've been working for almost 25 years. And I was going to do a solo episode about what I've learned in this 25 years of working, what I would do differently if I could do it over. But then I decided, why not have the people who were there with me at the very beginning of my career? And I thought of you guys, and we always have very fascinating conversations about careers, where we are, mindset. I mean, they're always great conversations that we're always 100% real. We can't. And so I wish all of our conversations can be recorded because they are so hilariously smart and I get so much out of it. So I said, why not have this conversation with you guys? We met in grad school in 2002, and we've been friends ever since. So I want you guys to start introducing yourself, and I'm going to start with Yadira. She's on my left. So why don't you introduce yourself, Yadira?
Hi, all. My name is Yadira Santana-Dowling, and I am an entrepreneur. I am a communication strategist. So, part of what I do since we graduated grad school has been focused on the Hispanic audience and market. So that's half of my time. The other half of my time I split in my entrepreneurial activities, which is helping small business owners strategize for their, how they market their business. And my most recent launch is also a mentoring program for young women who want to live a more joyous and intentionally joyous life. And I went to undergrad. My undergrad degree is Bachelor's of Organizational Behavior Management. And I went to Miami of Ohio.
That's right, Miami of Ohio. Roberta.
Yes. So my career has been in marketing. I spent most of my career in advertising on the account side. I've worked in-house for Bank of America, doing in-house marketing, advertising. I've been a client side, I've been agency side, and all that for the last 20 plus years. Most recently, I've decided to become an entrepreneur. God bless my soul. And seeing all sorts of new challenges, both in marketing, but just overall in business management. So I've been doing that over the last almost 2 years now. My undergrad education is also in marketing. So I have a bachelor's of business administration in marketing from the College of William and Mary. And I also minored in psychology there as well.
Okay. Emanuel.
Very nice. Very nice. You're also accomplished. My name is Emanuel Basnight. I am a 2002 graduate of Elizabeth City State University.
Okay, you better rep.
Elizabeth City, North Carolina. My career has taken some shifts and turns over the 20 years, but for the most part, I'm an integrated brand strategist. I help advertising agencies and brands with their communication and creative challenges. In addition to that, I've also become an entrepreneur. That's all of this stuff for one business you see behind me, all the ingredients and supplies for my skincare and fragrance company I call Brands by Basnight. I've started to dip a toe into African American and African religions and spirituality with my second business called Bless the Rose, where I offer spiritual consultations. I also conduct research and share educational talks and resources for people who want to learn more about African American spirituality.
All right. So that's quite the range. Just so people know, I went to Morgan State University, HBCU in the house, and I got a degree in marketing, and I've been working in marketing for 20 years, like the rest of you. Very similar.
Did I forget my degree?
Oh, what did you get a degree
in? BS in psychology, minor in business administration.
All right, excellent. Yeah, so we all have similar degrees. We all started out on the same track. We graduated from the same program at Virginia Commonwealth University almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And so our careers have taken, if you just listen to what we're doing now, some of it, we still have our toe in, what our foundations are, which are in marketing, but we also have branched out to do our own things. Roberta, you're in doing wine and decor. Emanuel doing skincare and religion. Yadira doing mentoring and consulting small businesses on the side. I got this podcast. And so it really makes me wonder, when you think back over your 20 years, what is the biggest lesson you've learned about yourself personally And what have you learned about the biggest lessons you've learned professionally as it relates to your career? Like the biggest lesson you've learned over these last, 23 years, some of us 21 years. Who wants to go first?
Roberta.
I can go first. Do y'all
I'm
want
about
me
to say you go first. I would say ever since the whole skippity doo dah, you didn't put me up front and make me answer the question first. But anyway, yes, Sonny, we would love
No,
to
I
hear
will
from
go
you.
first. I'll start with professionally. The biggest lesson that I have learned over the course of my career, I would say, is to, if I could go back and tell myself something, the biggest lesson would be don't play by the rules. I'm a very much a rule follower. I very much like to do things in a certain order, do things the correct way. But over the course of my career, I could see definite spots in my life where I played it safe and I tried to do everything the right way. And there's nothing wrong with having integrity and having ethics. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is sometimes I feel like I held myself back because I felt like I didn't have enough experience. I felt like I needed to check off one more box before I could do XYZ. So I would just tell myself to take more risk, put yourself out there more. It's very easy to say that in hindsight, right? Because, when you're going through it, you don't feel that way. But I think that, knowing what I know now, if I could go back and I would just push myself a little bit more. And the biggest lesson I've learned personally is that I've got it. I've always had it. And I didn't always believe that I did at certain points in my life. I doubted myself. It's almost like, what Michelle Obama said about her career and her ending up in the White House, where she was surrounded by all these smart people. And you get in the room and you be like, now, how did you get here? I've had those experiences. I still have those experiences. I had those experiences when I was when I was a coordinator. I had those experiences in fact, I had those experiences when I was in grad school. One of the things that my professor says that I think back on often when I was in, not grad school, when I was in undergrad, in my senior year, and we had to do case studies. And I was like, why are we looking at case studies? These people know better, they know more. And he was like, you assume that they do. They don't. And that's why we look at case studies, because they think they know everything, but you have a different perspective. Your perspective matters. You assume that they thought of everything, they didn't. And so I would just say the biggest lesson that I've learned is to have confidence in myself. And I know a lot of that comes with age and experience, but when it comes to my career professionally, I feel if I could learn those lessons a little bit earlier, I would have liked to. All right, y'all not quiet ever, so I'm gonna need somebody to jump in there.
I'll jump in because mine, I guess, kind of adds on to that. So I would say marketing, this career in marketing, what I've learned is that it's very subjective. Marketing is very, very subjective. And even when you have research and you have data, how that data and research is interpreted has a lot of space for interpretation, and is subjective. And I wish I would have understood that a lot sooner, a lot earlier, because I think a lot of I was very critical of myself, and I still am, and I was critical of other people. But at the end of the day, like there's many ways that you can market a product or a brand or anything, and being open to that, I think, would have saved myself a lot of mental anguish if I had accepted that earlier on.
How would that have impacted your career though? Knowing that it was subjective, it would have done what?
Well, one, I wouldn't have gotten myself personally so wrapped up and so I would have given more space for other people to be right, or not to think, oh, I was wrong in this, my idea or my perspective was wrong. I think, I just would have been less critical, and that would have shown itself in many ways through my career, like specific different jobs. I think there was one job that I had in particular where I used to fight for what I believed to be the right thing, and I feel like to some extent I took it too far, and I, you know what I mean, I ended up like getting fired from that job because it's just like, I believe that this thing is right. And you're not going to tell me otherwise. You're not going to, you know what I mean? And I'm not going to keep doing, because I'm coming in here 10, 12 hours a day, and I'm not going to keep doing something that I don't believe is right. And if I had, I mean, maybe that was a good thing for my career, you know, maybe if I hadn't been, you know, that strong, I would have had that job, but maybe I didn't need to have that job, you know? So I think there's different ways at different times throughout the years that it could have been a good thing or a bad thing. I just think that I would have saved myself my own personal, like, space. You know what I mean? That line would have been a lot clearer. And I think at this age, I'd be a lot less stressed. I'd look back and have a lot more less stress under my belt.
So personally, that's kind of like a mix of personal and professional.
Yeah.
The stress. Okay.
It's hard to look back on like 20 years and not have some sort of personal, like, because that's like half my life, you know what I mean, that I've dedicated to my career. And it's not, I spent the time doing something. Like it took something of me.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said about being passionate about what you do. And I think about that. I'm like, yes, I'm passionate, but also it's a job. To put that much care. I could say that now. I don't know if I've ever been, to the point where I want to put my job on the line because I care about, this thing so much. I think that there is a point, to me, there's a point where I go, you know what, you can have it. And I think working in marketing in particular, where it is so subjective, I think one of the things that it taught me was not to get married to the work. Do not get married to the work. Yeah.
That was going to be one of mine. Like,
if it's
absolutely.
Not off, if it's not off strategy, and it's left field, and it's whether the logo is 0.5 or 0.7 bigger, fine, whatever. I'm not gonna argue with you, even if it's off strategy.
I think that's also valid, even when the clients, to Roberta's point, because it's subjective, even if the clients don't like it, like people really get bent out of shape, and it's like it's okay, like we can try again. You know what I'm saying? Like, why do we make this job so seriously? Like, why do we take it, so seriously?
Well, I think I know. It's one of my answers to Sonia's question.
Go ahead, Emanuel.
And what I've kind of what I realized is that, well, I guess they're kind of related. But the first thing is like, I wish I knew what I wanted from the career before I set out on a career. Like my whole purpose was just to get a good job that pays well. Like that was it. And then by the 5th or 6th year, I didn't like dealing with clients. I didn't like the pace of the work. Like I didn't like, people blowing small things out of proportion and taking everything so seriously. Like those were things that I would not have known unless I entered the career or the marketing space. But after getting into it, I was just like, I don't like working this way. And I realized that I never stopped to think about how I wanted to work. I was just super ambitious and focused on getting to these agencies and getting the salaries and getting the titles. And then I just gritted through all of the inconveniences because I was it's a decent, title and decent salary. But it wasn't until maybe a year or two ago, after I've been consulting for at least a good 5 or 6 years, but then being gradually pulled into a flow of work that is way more complementary to how I want to work. And this more so in the religious and spiritual space. And I just kind of realized that I confused my career from my calling. And I kind of did that for 20 years. And it's not to say that I was tricked into thinking that way, but I didn't come in contact with anyone to tell me this was an option, you know what I'm saying, to even think about my life this way. It's just go to school, get some type of advanced degree, get a career, and then figure everything else out. And after 20 years, I kind of realized nah, this is a job. It's a skill that I know how to perform. that I get paid for, that people like reach out to me, you know, to conduct. But I will be limiting myself if I continue to think about this skill and this way to make money the same way I would think about a calling. So I'm not like, I no longer confuse like the two. And for me, that was a lot of, it created a lot of tension because I would be at work and I would just be like, I don't care about selling hamburgers. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to do something for Black people. And I don't want to do something for Black people that, you know, results in us selling them something that they don't need. Like, you know, and I was like, oh crap. Like, I'm trying to like force the things that are like reflective of my values and my calling into this like small box of my career, and it doesn't fit.
Right. I want to put a pin in something you said about calling. We're going to come back to that because I do have a question about that, but I want to give Yadira an opportunity to answer her biggest lesson professionally and personally.
So starting out with professionally, I think that, you know, one of the things that I even share with younger folks when I mentor, when I teach, is the things that you are shy about, that you think are knocks against you, are actually the strengths, and why we need to hear your opinion, your perception, your thoughts. As you know, I'm an immigrant. English was not my first language. I started out, you know, just trying to figure this thing out by myself. I say when I was in high school or college, I didn't even know this career was a possibility for me, right? So going in and just out of my curiosity, going into the brand center and say, let me check this out. I do want to be a consumer expert to the bicultural consumer in this country. That's exactly what has made me a unicorn, because I haven't met anyone that has dedicated themselves to the Hispanic community that has had a master's degree and that has been doing this for 20 years, right? I've met other people that have come through it and are great planners, but have come from research, from different areas, right? But nobody like me. So to me, like, I want people to understand that their strengths, you may be overlooking your own strengths if you're not thinking about the things that you think other people will think lesser of, or that you devalue about yourself. Those are strengths for the industry, for an industry like ours, right? And then in terms of personally, I would say, and I think I mentioned this in our last conversation too, trust your gut, because your gut will let you know. To Emanuel's point, right? Like, there are certain things that don't sit well with us, and we just endure it because we think we chose a career and this is the path that we have to follow. When it don't fit, it don't fit, and we pick something else. It doesn't have to stay forever. This is how I have done different work arrangements. This is how I have left agencies. This is how I've turned down job offers. If my gut doesn't feel right about it and I'm not excited to do it, like I'm like Emanuel said, I'm not gonna sell burgers to our people. I will not do that, right? So part of me figuring it out in the last 20 years, it also means that I'm selective about the clients that I work with, about the agencies that I work with, because I don't want to just be thrown into any account, you know, and being able to customize, like, trust yourself, like you're valuable enough to be able to choose and customize what your day-to-day and your career and your job looks like.
And she says that as she's in the mountains of the Dominican Republic right now. So she practices what she preaches. Exactly.
It's a real flex. It's a flex.
It's a flex.
You know what that reminds me of? So I remember long ago, I remember, Emanuel, you were in a very fancy New York agency and you were working on a soda account. I'm not going to name the brand, but I remember you decided to leave there. Okay, well.
I don't owe them nothing. It's the truth. Yeah, like,
but I remember you saying, you were like,
I worked on Sprite and Fanta.
Right? Ah, that's right. I remember you leaving because you were like, I'm not going to be responsible for little Black and brown children drinking the sugar water. That's just, it doesn't sit right with me. And even then, like, I was just like, not that I already knew that you were a person of integrity, but to see you, because again, we all wanted jobs. We were new. We were just like, we just want a job. We just want a paycheck. We were to some extent clout chasing. We want a good, you know, name agency and and like, you had that and you were like, no, I can't, I'm not going to compromise on that. And that like gave me something that stayed with me for years.
I'm, I'm flattered. Like it didn't, real world, you know what I'm saying? Like it didn't come without some type of like consequence. You know what I'm saying? Like I was young, I was black, I was smart. I was also probably like a little too idealistic, but like, fast forward to, 20 some years later. And like Yadira said, like I'm still like taking these positions or like, working with these companies and I'm going like, like it doesn't, these are my values. Like, do you want me to do something different? You know what I'm saying? Or you want me to do what's like, against what I believe? Because if that's the case, then I can introduce you to some other people, but I'm not the right person for the job. And after I left that agency on that account, I went to a black owned agency. And I still had people who were just like, you sure you want to do this? You know what I'm saying? Like, you sure that's the right move, for you? And I was just like, yeah, absolutely. And again, consequences, you know what I'm saying? Like, no place is perfect, but yeah, it's a little easier when you're younger. When you're older, you're like, oh my God, like,
Well, what I'll
did
say
I really
about
just turn down product money?
yeah, Emanuel, you were like the golden boy in graduate school. You were the one,
Right.
the one
Fellowship.
with all the job offers, fellowship. You were handpicked by the godfather of planning,
Oh, Lord.
or was he the father? I don't know.
The
The father of
stepdaddy.
planning, the
Like,
stepdad, the
but you
golden
want to
child.
know
So
something? Like, you want to know the truth? This is the honest to God's truth. I think about this all the time, and I feel like it's come up with conversations like when we have our group calls, and I just used to feel so much like imposter syndrome because I was good at it, but I didn't give two shits about it. And I would just always be surrounded by people who was just like, love the fact that they were strategists and love the fact that they get to sit around and intellectualize the most like mundane of things and it's like being culture and all of this stuff. And I was just like, okay, this is a job, I do it, but I don't care. So I always felt kind of like an imposter because I didn't love it the way everybody else did. And then I kind of realized why I didn't love it is because like I didn't pretend it was my calling. Like I feel like a lot of other people.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, our program was made for people who thought that was their calling.
Yeah.
But
But
I
there's
love
also,
what.
Sonia,
Go
I
ahead.
think that we, I think what we're talking about is we take the influence of our industry very seriously, right? Like you can see that we understand that we went into it to influence folks for many different reasons. And I think that when you realize that you're influencing our own people in a negative way, that's not what I got in it for. I got in
Right.
it to elevate my people.
But you're
And
being influenced too. Like they don't tell you that part. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't tell you that.
yeah, yeah. But it's like if it don't track with that, I'm like, no, I'm gonna elevate my people, which is why I've aligned with agencies that are about elevating Hispanic, Black, and Brown folks. And then it comes to a point where you've sold so many things to our people. You're like, our people don't need all this stuff. You know what they need? You know what they need? They need these messages. And then we start going into the social mission. No, they need for people to be aware about these messages. And I can leverage my career, my know-how into then sharing these messages for the
Okay,
masses.
luckily I know you and I know you have a good heart because otherwise that sounds like propaganda.
Nah, she
Sounds
probably
like
yeah. Nah.
propaganda. But I know it's coming from a good place. It's coming from a good place. But I want to go back to what Emanuel kind of hinted on is a calling versus a job. Do you think that? I mean, we grew up, I know all, our parents, our boomers, I know my mom really wanted me, she didn't pressure me to do any type of job, but I grew up with the feeling of knowing I am going to college to get a degree, to work and develop a career that's going to allow me to take care of myself and my family and to make my parents proud. That didn't necessarily equate to a dream. Like I wasn't thinking about working in my dream career. And I think a lot of people our age probably experienced the same thing unless you had parents who recognized that you could go after what you want and live your dream, right? If you had parents that fostered that in you, you're very lucky. But my parents were like, get a job, take care of yourself,
Yeah, I don't think,
have
yeah,
stability, just
yeah.
based on who they are. But now with almost 25 years working in our careers, looking back, do you feel like it is necessary for people to try to find their dream? Is it necessary to have a dream job or to have passion about what you do? I'll let you guys answer first because I do have an opinion on that, but go ahead. Who wants to go first?
Well, I think to your point, our parents did not like it. When I say it, I don't even think it was on the radar of like there's something out there that this individual will like to do as a profession, as a job, and get paid for it. Like that just was not even a thing. So from their perspective, it was like learn to do a thing. So therefore, so you will get paid for this thing that you do. That was the extent of it. I don't know where we got it from. I'm grateful we did, but like have some sort of connection or place value or importance on how we spend our time. And is it something that we actually want to do and have enough agency to say, yes, that is important. Let me go find those things that I actually want to do. So I think that is a very is a generational thing. I'm glad we have it. But I do think that as a generation, like it's very hard for us to say, okay, well, money is not enough. And having the security of a job is not enough. And then also to have the space and even the wherewithal to figure out, well, what is my calling? What do I like to do? What do I believe I'm good at? And for me, honestly, I've done that exploration while at the same time having my career. So I made the decision to go to grad school. It's in this industry. I'm going to work in this industry. I'm not going to start over because it's going to put me back at starting point of, one of the whole get a job, make money thing. And I've had to kind of figure it out as I go, which is not a lot of space for that because we work a lot. So I don't know.
And I agree. I think I agree with what Roberta's saying. My approach to that, or my answer to that, is that it takes time. I think it's unrealistic to expect a 21, 22-year-old to have a dream job and to know what they're going to do. I think you learn even about yourself over time. The things you think you like at 21 is not what you may like at 40. And that's okay. Like, who expects a kid to have all these or these adult answers, right? So
you
I think
expect an adult to have these answers. I don't even have the answers, but go ahead.
Right. Like we got to learn it as we go because of the trial and error that Emanuel was talking about earlier, right? Like you may try something and you're like, this doesn't feel like what I thought it would. This is not the joy that I thought it was going to, it's not bringing it the way I thought it would. So I think it takes time.
I realized when so after I quit my last full-time agency job, and I was still transitioning into like freelancing and consulting, but in all of my free time, I did everything I was interested in and wanted to do. And it has enriched my life so much. And like having this conversation and just to piggyback off of like Yadira's point, like I feel like it's more important to just build in regular time to like explore the things you are interested in. It's more important to do that, and it's less important to like try to parlay your interest into like a dream job because you change and you grow. Like the trends and the style of the things you're interested in, like they change, or over time too. So there are people out there who have the luxury and the ability to pursue a dream job, and because of capitalism, like 97% of us don't have that luxury. And even if we do, like we have so many more barriers, whether it be financial or social or health barriers, ability barriers, that like the people who actually like get these jobs very easily may not have to deal with. And unfortunately, like at a young age, you do kind of become aware of like, oh, I need money. And my time is best suited making money than like diddling around doing the stuff that I enjoy. My mother realized from a very young age that I was like artistic, like super artistic. I was painting and drawing and doing all types of stuff. So I wanted to be like an artist. Like people would ask me, like adults would ask me, 6, 7 years old, what do you want to be? I want to be an artist. they would ask me, again, oh, I want to be a designer. You know what I'm saying? I would just say that because I would be like, okay, this is some type of profession where I can like use my artistic abilities. But when it came time to like, get real about making that happen, I had no one who could help me do it. I had no avenues into any type of like industry or organizations. I definitely could not afford to move to New York and enroll at Parsons. You know what I'm saying? Like there were just like so many hurdles. Um, but during my like wild sabbatical after I quit full-time life, I took like a sewing class. I took like a design class. And guess what I realized? I fucking hated it. Like I hated it. I was just like, yo, I don't like going to the fabric store. I don't like being super precise if you off by like a millimeter, and I don't like thread in the machines. I don't like any of this stuff. I still like the illustration aspect of it. And I like watching designers and I like watching all these ateliers and these people make these like couture pieces. It's fascinating. I don't want to make it. So like I just think like, man, like had I had like the room and the time to just like further explore and dip in and out of this stuff instead of just being like, okay, all of that playtime is over. I need to focus on a career and I need to make money. I probably would be in a better place. Well, I'm in a place I need to be now. But my point is like I feel like it's more realistic and more healthy to just give people the space in the room and the resources to continue to explore the things they're interested in instead of like being focused on like a dream job because dreams change.
Yeah, dreams change, and I think that's a lot of pressure to put on a job. I think just my experience and raising my kids now, trying to I do not ask them what they want to be when they grow up. I don't, but what I do try to do that I learned from my childhood is to foster their interest. What are you interested in? And give them the confidence in those interests. Oh my God, my daughter's very creative. That creativity she can do any number of things with it. But I want her to have the confidence to try it and the curiosity to follow it wherever it goes. So those are the kinds of things that I think, will serve her. And I wish I had more when I was growing up. I feel like there's a lot, I think there's a lot of pressure when it's like, do what you love and you'll never work a day. Lies, because even if you love it, it's going to always feel like work if you are.
Like, the money will come. Where's she at?
Working with people will always.
It is.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And so I just feel like, when it comes to dream jobs, now calling, how do you define, is calling different than a dream job? Manuel, you brought it up. You said calling.
I think
do
so.
You feel like that's different, and how so?
So I feel like a dream job you have to pursue. I feel like a calling pursues your ass. You know what I'm saying? Like whether you like want to or not. Like ultimately you have the decision, to be like, I don't want to do this. But I feel like, a calling, you will always find yourself in close proximity, like to this thing. You know what I'm saying? Like to like no fault of your own. And I just like, be a little transparent. Like people have been telling me I was gonna be a preacher or a priest from the moment I can remember. And my answer will always be like, they don't make enough money. No, because as a kid, I'm like, I need to make money. You know what I'm saying? Like every past I know broke. No way, man.
They didn't drive a Cadillac?
No. My granddad drove a Lincoln, but he worked at a shipyard, so he wasn't a wealthy man. But that has always been spoken over me. And I've always kind of like dodged it. Like, no, good, no thanks. And here I am at 43, and I've kind of like found myself like using some of the skills that I've, acquired through my career, like conducting research about religious racism, like presenting research in Brazil, being asked to participate in more research, write and conduct panels, mentor people. Like people reach out to me, like they ask me, can you help me with this? An hour before we got on, somebody texted me out of the blue and was just like, I'm going through something. Like, can you pray for me? And I'm sit on the phone like, what? What? I'm not even telling people I do this stuff. It's just like, gravitating towards me. So to me, that's like how I would delineate between a career and a calling, because careers you pursue, and that may be, there's always like some blending between the two. Like there may be parts of a career that are kind of a calling, and I feel like that's more likely to be seen when we talk about people doing their like pursuing their dream jobs and stuff. But to me, like I had to like fight and pursue, advertising and marketing. The whole time I was running towards that career, I was running away from like what all these old people were speaking over my life since I was a kid. And now here I am. Like I don't have to lift a finger, and like all the aspects of this calling, they come to me.
Well, I guess you got to be in tune to be open to notice your calling, because I still feel like I haven't found my calling. My calling yet.
Says the woman who has a podcast.
Look, it's hard work. I don't know. You said it felt like chasing. It sounded like a job. No, I'm just kidding. I do love it, but I don't know if that's my calling. I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, I think that you also have to think about, you do need to create the space in your mind to really think, or work through a coach. Like I'm working through a coach, and that's how I got here, to what was I really created and placed in this world to do? Because that feels different than a job, than a career that I chose based on my mind, right? That decision of the soul, and it comes from the heart. And many times, to Emanuel's point, we shut it down because it's not going to make, we think it's not going to make us enough money. It's not checking the boxes that somebody else said before us.
And other people are more likely to see it before you do.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The stuff that people keep asking, like people have asked me, like, can you mentor me? And I was like, I'm not a coach. I'm none of those things. Yet that comes very natural, right? Like that's what I'm going to do no matter what. No, whatever job you put me in, I'm going to mentor somebody else. Wherever I go, I'm going to end up doing that, right? And I don't think to charge for it, because that's my soul, right? However, when I think about career, when I think about the businesses that I've created, they all come from my mind. They come from me connecting the dots and putting two and two together. To Emanuel's point, that's how we ended up choosing these careers, right? It's a mixture of the creative side and the business side. And here's how we ended up here. That's a choice.
What I find interesting about the time that we live in now, in our 40s, that I think we benefit from, is the level of information that we have, the level of access that we have. I mean, I see coaches, you see coaches, you're a coach, you want to coach. I can't help but think, I'm like, oh my gosh, to be a 20 something or a 30, maybe not 20, because what in your 20s, but being in your 30s and knowing that these types of things exist and that you can have them, that they're available. And now obviously you have to have discernment about who you work with and who you allow in your space. But I do feel like the people growing up now are so lucky to have that at the tip of their fingers. With a Google search, you can connect with people. The ways you can find mentors on LinkedIn and reach out to them. The wall is not so thick, right? It's not so hard to reach people that you admire in a lot of ways, which I find very valuable. And and I'm definitely taking advantage of those things right now as an adult. But I look back to kids or people in their 20s and 30s, and they have access to this. And I'm like, I hope y'all know how lucky y'all are. Y'all better go before they, make these AI, these robots start feeling and emotions. Please tap into your coaches before AI takes off. Roberta, did you want to say something?
I was going to say to that, I mean, use the word discernment. I mean, right now, I feel like we have seen in the course of our career, a lack of information, almost to too much information. And I don't even know how I would be, like, if I had access to all of this, if I look at like my 20-year-old self, I know I did not have the discernment. If all this stuff was presented in front of me, I don't know. I probably it would have been analysis paralysis, or I would have just picked something that was just like, oh, I like doing this today, I'm gonna go do that. Like, it's just, so in some ways I do envy the people who are starting their careers now, but at the same time, if they don't have that discernment, it can lead them down a path of the
Yeah.
next 5, 10, how many ever years of like, oh yeah, I'm doing this thing I should not be
Yeah.
doing.
And it's not
That's why
just,
mentors are important.
yeah, I was just about to say that's why mentors are important. That's why therapists are important, to help you cultivate that discernment within yourself. Like it just doesn't, happen, on its own. So if you as you look back, over the 25 years like of working, like what are you guys most proud of in your professionally? Like what's your proudest accomplishment when you look back? This is the most silent you guys have ever are.
Well, it's hard to pick.
Who wants to go first? Go ahead, Roberta.
Well, no, I'm just saying it's like hard to pick just one thing. I mean,
Okay, well, just
a lot. I mean, so
they don't have to be your favorite one, just one, anyone.
Well, I will say not like one specific like thing, but I will say that like me working in advertising, I was able to accomplish one of the things that I set out to do in this career, which is improving representation. So every opportunity that I had, every account I was on, every shoot, every photo shoot, video, commercial, whatever, I was very vocal about, okay, what are brown people at? What are black people at? What are we doing? And not just like as a little sprinkling here and there, or like having our cultural experiences be a part of the stories and making that more visible. So I am proud of the work that I did. And there were many opportunities where it was intimidating. And when I didn't officially have a seat at that table to voice those opinions, but I made sure that I did, even though I was kind of scared to do so. So I am proud of that.
Mm-hmm. And I think in a lot of ways, that is the role that Black people, a person of color, I feel like that, I know people don't like that burden placed upon them, but I feel like that is a part of our responsibility to make sure that we are pulling people up, that we are, making the room smarter, which is what you're doing when you add diversity to a team, which is great. Yadira.
I am going to piggyback on what Roberta said. The making sure that I'm not the last or the only has been very rewarding for the past 20 years. And I am actively doing that. And then number two, in the smack middle of the pandemic, we were all missing information because nobody had it. And having the ability and being on the front line of providing that information in language to people that didn't have anywhere to turn. Like if you thought English speakers did not know what was going on, imagine somebody that does not understand. So doing work for a brand that was able to communicate and was reputable and trustworthy. And then the icing on the cake, not important, not the most important, but the icing is to be recognized and awarded for that work. I think that's great, because it's like, yes, we're doing this for the good of the people, and other people in our industry recognize that this was excellent.
Mm-hmm. Emanuel.
I kind of struggle with this a little bit. I mean, to be completely honest, I always struggle with this question because, like, as I said before, like, this was just like a skill that I acquired based on like, how I'm fundamentally wired. And I just kind of went into this like, what's the tasks? What's the pay? You know what I'm saying? Get out my face. So like, I don't know if I have like a real answer about like, what I'm most proud of, but just going off of what Roberta and Yadira shared, like, I do like the fact that wherever I was, like, I always like fought to create a connection with other Black strategists, especially like, junior or entry level, because they're not always like young. And like being the mentor for others that like I kind of wish I had, because like, let's also not forget, like 20 years ago, like this particular career track was kind of new.
Yeah.
And people didn't even know what we did. Like when we told them, we went from account planners to strategists to, creative strategists. Like things have changed a lot in 20 years. Like 20 years ago, like it was very hard for, I feel like I can speak for like all of us. It was very hard to find like a Black mentor or a mentor that shared your experience or values like in this like career. And, as I just kind of like matured through or in marketing, I realized that like I was coming across a lot of like, Black strategists, and they kind of found their way to me. And even like a couple of days ago, someone called me and was just like I'm going toe to toe with this like ECD. Use this song for this spot, and it's a horrible song. And I feel like we should use another song. Like, what? How should I navigate this? Da, 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 da. And we talked through it. And then the next day, they hit me up and they was like, "Thank you so much. That worked. Like what you told me, like to do and say, like it worked. Thank you so much. Like I should have called you earlier." And I was just like, "It's all good. I'm frying chicken. Why they called me? Ain't no big deal. You know what I'm saying?
Not
Like
frying
this
chicken.
is absolutely, it was amazing." But I like I would love to continue in that capacity because like I know what it was like starting out. You know what I'm saying? Especially like being, a Black strategist, because you couldn't always go to like a non-Black person to speak honestly about your experiences and why you struggled or had concerns about whatever the ideal, the brand or the client wanted to do. Um so yeah, that's kind of the main thing. You know what I'm saying? Like if like it's not a particular like, project or assignment or anything. Like I'm just happy I could be for others what I kind of wish that like, I had. There
Yeah.
was like one particular assignment that I liked that I worked on when I was consulting, and it was about analyzing the health disparities and life expectancy between residents of Chicago's West Side and residents of Chicago's North Side. And I conducted the research and compiled everything and presented, what I learned to the leadership of all the major hospitals in Chicago. And that was great because I got to like take what Black people were saying, and I, had opportunity to like present in a way where like it landed perfectly on the hearts of a lot of people who don't even go to the neighborhoods that these research participants like lived in. And that research was used for a book, and that book was a bestseller. And like, that made it easy for initiatives to be made for like people to get resources and stuff, and in on the West Side and in the community. So I like that. But those are like the only two answers that I have. Well, I don't have a long
Yeah.
list
I
of
mean,
like
that's fine.
proud of.
That's good answers. And I swear this isn't groupthink. I mean, I was thinking along the same lines. I think, first of all, I work in healthcare. So I do what I consider very important, heartfelt work. I mean, I've worked with patients who have cried about their experiences, who have shared, what I consider miracles and just really, really, really great things. But when I think about the course of my career, what I'm most proud of and what I'm just now realizing and accepting about myself is that I have poured into a lot of people who have been on my team. I love managing teams, which I didn't even think that I would be good at. It always made me nervous. But when I think about the people that I've worked with, the careers that I helped develop along the way, to me, those are what I'm most proud of. And it's almost like when you are not in that position to do those things, that it illuminates like, well, damn, I used to really like doing that. And also I was good at, motivating my team. I was good at bringing them together. I was good at, just leading a team. And for me, I'm very proud of the teams that I've led throughout the course of my career. And so that's the thing that I'm most proud of, that it always has to do with, that I'm surprised that it has to do with the people. I've done a lot of great work, but to me, those are the things that kind of stick out for me. So
I'm shocked by that because you don't even like people.
I was gonna say the same thing, but
who don't like people?
You don't like people?
I am an introvert, right? I like people in small doses, in ways that I can, in the ways that I like them. But I don't like groups of people. Like, I don't want to be around a lot of people. I don't like networking. I don't like big parties. But I do think that I'm very good at, developing the team. I don't know why. Maybe that's why I'm drained when I get around y'all and I act like I don't like people. Actually, I it's we working on that in therapy. But I do.
How
I
was the
mean, when
Renaissance concert? Those were a lot. It was a lot of people at the Beyonce concert, right?
but I was in my bubble. I know the people next to me were like, "Girl, sit down." I don't sit down at concerts except for when Beyonce's singing her ballads. Then I will sit down. But the one thing that I want to talk about before we leave is, okay, we talked a lot about the past and where we are now. Future, like tomorrow, like the next 10 years. How do you see your career developing from, 45 on, right? How do you see retirement? Do you see yourself retiring in a traditional way? I ask this question because I think about now that we're closer to retirement, I'm like, shit, retirement seems very real and very expensive. And so I'm starting to think about that differently, more at the forefront of my life. And so it's like, well, how do I manage my career? How do I manage my money? How do I make sure I have enough money when I finish, another, is it 20 years of this or 15 years of this, however much longer I have left to work. Like, how do y'all see retirement? Do y'all think about retirement and what you're going to do and how? What?
I always thought about early retirement.
Okay.
Yes, same.
I always gave myself like, okay, maybe 55, right? And when I think about it, I'm about to be 45 in 2 days, and I still think about maybe another 10 years in this kind of iteration. Now, is it a complete retirement like we are used to thinking, like for boomers? I don't think so. I think that my brain still needs to be engaged. I think that I will find ways to still be engaged in the community and using the talents that I've developed or the skills that I have developed throughout a lifetime to continue to further that. Do I see myself working full time for somebody else? Nope, not anymore. Do I see myself continuing with my own business? Yes, absolutely. I think that it is enriching for me, not only because I'm getting paid, but because I enjoy that. I created that. So I see myself doing more of that, even if not involved in the day-to-day activities, but definitely something involved, with my own business.
Emanuel, you want to go?
No, yeah, I'll go. Yeah, I was pretty much thinking about it along the same lines as Yadira. Like I don't know if it's like I feel like we need a new word. You know what I'm saying? Because like I feel like for our generation, and after our generation, I feel like the idea of retirement has just lost its luster because like the idea of work has lost its luster. You know what I'm saying? Like people, we often say like, nobody's staying at a job for 30, 40 years. But I don't feel like too many people are just waiting to be like, ooh, wait till I'm 67 and a half or whatever it is. And I'm going to sit around and do nothing. Like everybody I've seen do that, they kind of died like, a couple of years afterwards. And at this point, I'm just like, I'm scared to retire.
That's why my mom won't retire. She don't know what.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's real. So, I wish there was like, like a retire light or some other phrase we come up with. It might be great for the podcast. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But like
the next chapter.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't feel like I will stop working. I just feel like I'll just prioritize work a little differently. You know what I'm saying? Like I definitely think about like, what is the quality of my life going to be in the next like 20, 30 years? And like, what do I need to do now, continue doing now to make sure that things happen? But I don't think about my future in terms of like traditional retirement because I don't feel like I'll be like, in Boca on the beach. The shit in 30 years, there ain't gonna be no Boca on the beach. The way these waters rise.
Gonna be Boca on the water.
God. Roberta.
So this is a very interesting and very timely topical question for me. I've been spending a lot of time in the last year talking about retirement, and it's been a struggle for me in several different ways. So I was one of those people that always thought about retirement as like you work, you like little ants and squirrels, and you get your nuts and you save them up, and then you have enough, and then you stop working. That is your heaven. That is your reward from all the stress and the, everything you've had to do for all these 20 some, how many, or 40 some years. That was like ingrained in me. As much as it was, go to school, get a job, work, stop doing that job. Like that was the path. And so it wasn't until recently a couple of different factors has, caused me to shift. One of which, the interesting one, is that, my partner is younger than me. And so he is of the mindset of a slightly different, generation, that retirement is not a thing to him. He will never stop working in some capacity. He's more of that like kind of gig economy kind of like mentality. And so he will have some part and parcel of some job. And to me, I was like, are you out of your mind? Like, I am not doing that. When I'm done, I'm done. Right. And my thinking, so me going and becoming an entrepreneur in the last couple of years, me in my mind at that time when I first started out on this and had the first inklings of an idea like 2-3 years ago, was, okay, this is going to be my transition. Like, I don't want to work as hard, but I want to do something that, I actually like and am passionate about. So I'm going to start my own business so the work that I'm doing, I can do that for a while, and I can have this business and I can get it off the ground so that, I can stop working and, I can still make money from it. After being in this entrepreneurial space, I realized this is not a transition. This is not let me do this for like 3 or 5 years and then I can let it go. It don't work like that. Entrepreneurship does not work like that. And it will take you much longer. It's taking, yes, much longer to see any fruits. And so because of those different perspectives, I will honestly say begrudgingly approaching retirement is like, okay, I'm going to be working for a while. And I need to really figure out in what capacity and doing what. And I'm trying not to let because I tend to be a worrywart. And I'm like, well, what can I rely on that's going to pay me, that I don't have to actually, work that much, mentally, physically, that hard. I can't do 12-hour days. That I'm not going to, 5 years from now, I'm not doing 12, 15-hour days of anything. And so I'm in a place now where I'm trying to figure out, what does that transition look like? And so it's all encompassing. It's like, okay, financially, what does that look like? How much of my time? What is it going to take of me mentally and physically? Like, I'm exploring all those different things to find out what's going to work for me in particular. And it's a lot. And it's something that I didn't think that I would be processing at 40, 44, 45-ish. I thought that I was like, oh, I'll just keep doing this and I'll figure it out at 55, 60, like whatever. And so, yeah, it's a very and I say all that to say I don't have it all figured out, but I do know it's not what I was conditioned to think it was going to be. And I also know that, for whatever reason, the generations that are coming up now and they're just starting work, it's not going to be that either. Like, it's not going to be whatever they envision their retirement to be. It's not going to be that either. So I got to figure out what's going to work for me.
Yeah. Well, the world keeps changing. I mean, I think I'm a little bit in your camp, Roberta, where I don't exactly know what I'll do for a living. I mean, I do still work a traditional job. The podcast is more of a hobby than an entrepreneurial pursuit right now, because I think of entrepreneurship as something that you get paid from. And so, I am in that canvas. Well, that's what you would like. And that's what I would like, right? A goal. But for right now, it's more sits in the hobby space. I do it because I enjoy it, kind of thing. I think the thing that makes it retirement scary for me is the money part of it, because I've invested my whole 20 years since I've been working, and I thought I have a lot more money at 45 than I do. And I was like, dang, well, where did money go? I did all this investing. Obviously we still have a significant amount of time, but to me that changes, right? I focus more on my health now, because I'm like, well, dang, I do want, as we get older, I don't want all my money to be sucked up with medical bills. I don't want I don't want it to have to go towards keeping me in a hospital or keeping me in a facility so they can take care of me 24/7. So it has changed my outlook in that way. Like, how can I be healthier? What do I like to do? What countries would you like to retire in? Where the dollar goes a lot farther than going in the United States. I mean, those are real, of course, if I could retire here in the United States, I would love it. But, I would like to do that depending on where the country is going. Right now, it's looking a little.
But I love that that's an option for us, because again, like 20 years
Right.
ago, 10 years ago, that wasn't even a thing to even like consider. And I love that it's an option for us right now.
It is an option. All right. So we're going to wrap this up. I want to start a new way to end my podcast. So I'm going to test it out on you guys. Right. So I'm going to ask this last question that each of you can answer. Roberta is not going first. Emanuel, you can go first. So the question is, or it's two questions actually. When is the last time you felt grown? And what was the last experience that let you know that you were still growing? Emanuel.
When was the last time I felt grown? I've always felt grown.
We're just a 5-year-old man walking around.
Absolutely. Like the oldest of four, parents got divorced when I was, like at a very young age. And like basically 8 years old. Like I'm taking care of 18 years old, taking care of me and my three younger siblings. So, and that's kind of the running joke, for Capricorns, they're born old and they grow young. So I always kind of felt like it was very easy for me to take on responsibilities, take care of others and feel grown. But I kind of remember really kind of losing my childhood, I guess, or claims to childhood, which reinforced the fact that I was grown. After my mom passed away, that's when I was just like, okay, that was just that just put a period on the end of that part of chapter, last sentence in the chapter of my life. And now from here on out, I have to operate in ways where not I don't have a mother, but it's not as easily available to have that unconditional love and that unconditional support, and taking my problems to somebody else help me figure them out. Those days are kind of over. So I would say at 32, that's when I just kind of realized oh crap, this is adulthood. You know what I'm saying? So that's felt grown. The growing part, man, I don't know. I feel like those examples might be a little too personal, but I will say this. um just over the last year, traveling to the south of France and going to Rome, going to Prague, and going to Accra, Ghana, and going to London, that was a very far out of my comfort zone experience, and it forced me to grow in ways that you don't think about growing as an American, and even as a black person, because there were some settings where I'm I couldn't communicate, I didn't speak the language, and even when I tried to, it was such a poor attempt, you know what I'm saying, that strangers had to come off the street and be like, I speak English, let me help you, you know what I'm saying, and it was an incredibly humbling but gratifying experience, because I was just oh crap, you know what I'm saying? I wouldn't have had the luxury of being in this position in the States, but being out of the country, now I kind of, I get it. So that's just one example of how traveling just, sort of forced me to be in predicaments and scenarios that are so far outside of my norm. It just kind of forced me to grow. And luckily in beneficial ways.
Excellent. Yadira?
So being a parent of 3 definitely makes me feel grown when I'm making decisions that impact their lives. Like one example of that was this past year, the children each got to choose whether they were going to go back to in-person school or continue remote. And Elvin and I decided to support each of them in their choice. And that to me felt like a very grown decision because no matter what we chose, there was going to be some nervousness and pluses and minuses to each choice. And that, as their mom, it weighs on me, right? You lose sleep over stuff like that. So I'm going to say that's the last time I felt grown. And then growing, personal as well. I think my husband has the ability to help me to continue to grow. The way that I see our relationship, I think that when it's a lie when people say that people don't change. People change over time. Obviously, people change in 20 years, being married for like almost that long. So when there is something that he says, I that he wishes he had, or that I was more of, or that I would tone up or down, whatever, it makes me want to learn and do better for him because I love him that much. And I want him to feel appreciated in this world that much. So that keeps me growing.
Oh, I love that. Go, Elvin. I love that perspective too, because you could look at that in a different way, as in a negative way, and you see it as an opportunity to grow and do better and to take your relationship to a different level. I love that.
That's why I acknowledge that people, that's why I acknowledge that people change, because we think like, oh no, they got to be like this, like marry what you want. You really don't expect people to change. Like I myself have changed, so grace, showing each other that grace.
Roberta, growing. Let's go.
I've really felt grown over the last, like, I don't know, 5 or 7 years. I somewhere in there I hit it, and I knew it because I was more vigilant about my time and my peace and energy. And so once I realized how quick I am to say, yeah, I'm not doing that, or get somebody else to do it. Like, it's like, yeah, I don't have it in me. Like, I'm not, like, and it was out of like conservation, you know what I mean? And so I felt like that is me being grown. Me is taking full agency over my time, my space, my energy, my all of that, and saying, yep. Or leading into stuff that I really want to do and choosing to do things I want to do. So that's when ever since I started saying, yeah, like, not doing that. I know I'm grown. The growing part, kind of similar to Yadira, in that a lot of experiences I've had over the last like year and a half, situations like with friendships and in my relationship, and also just in therapy, I've realized that I've been conditioned in many ways to think certain ways, to act certain ways, to I've realized, I can be a little controlling. And deciding whether or not, what, I was that way for a reason, for all those many years, because I needed to be for whatever situations. But I have a choice. Do I want to continue to be that way, or do I want to try something different? And in many of those, situations where I've been called up and have that question presented to myself, I've decided I want to do something different. I have no idea what that different looks like, which path it will be, which way which lens I should look like, any of that. But I know I want to do something different. And so that is direct, quite literal, like growing emotionally, growing mentally, growing spiritually. It's really taking like a decisive choice to grow.
Yeah. And I think at our age, you hear a lot about, not giving a crap about what other people think. You want to be you want to be, but there's something to be said to know that that you're not stuck in your ways of being, your ways of existing, your ways of thinking. It's nice, right? You think, oh, when I get older, I'm just going, I don't have to change. I think the beauty is knowing that you don't have to change, but the world is so much better to you when you do, right? It's so much more open when you do. So
that's how you stay young too.
You stop
That's how
learning
you stay young.
when you're in a casket.
Yes,
The
you
way I
do.
said it was way nicer.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you. Yadira, as we wrap up, we will let that be the last word, casket. Thank you, my friends, for reflecting on our career paths. I appreciate you all so much. And for everybody else, I will see you next episode.